And now I have Tony Flo. So Tony is a friend of mine. Tony, just to start off, can you tell me what, in your words, HQM is? Like, what is HQM? As like, like what type of game is it? Or
HQM, I would say, is a first-person hockey game that is like nothing else anyone's ever played. It's a high skill ceiling, very hard to pick up. It's bare bones, doesn't look like much, but I don't know. I feel like ultimately you get what you put in with it.
right, that's a good one. People have been saying similar things.
Yeah.
How many hours roughly? Because we don't have them tracked, but how many hours roughly do you think you have in the game?
I honestly, I've thought about this before, and I couldn't guess. I couldn't like possibly guess. Like thousands, thousands upon thousands for sure. Like,
Like Dial and D&B gave me like anywhere between, I think that was like 8,000 or something, and D&B is just
yeah,
like 5,000 to 6,000. I would say for
yeah.
me, it's probably in that range too. Like,
I mean, I would. I think I maybe have played more than that. Like, I play a lot. I've done a lot of solo practicing, if that counts.
yes, it does. Yeah.
Like, like I play it. Whatever. If we're not playing games, like I probably play 5, 10 minutes a day, every day, just as something to do when I'm bored on the computer. Like,
Right.
it's like a time waster more than anything for me. So I
Right.
don't know. Yeah, more than that. Like probably closer to 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with like Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours theory, which is like it takes
It
10,000
takes
hours.
10,000 hours to get really good. Well, I didn't get really good at HQM.
I
I'm
mean,
still I'm still waiting. So maybe
I,
I'm not at 10 yet.
everybody else spent 10,000 hours too, so it's kind of hard to.
Yeah.
So what initially drew you to play HQM?
Um, it was pretty simple, I think, compared to a lot of people's. I played a whole lot of NHL. To go on a little bit of a tangent, when I was like a kid, maybe entering my teenage years, into my teenage years, I was playing NHL like exclusively. Like that was like the game I played. Like I played a lot of games on Xbox, but that was like my game, and I was really like I was really good at it when I was probably like 15 or 16, and I loved it. It was my favorite game. And then uh, one of them was coming out. I think NHL 15 was coming out, and it was stripped down. It was jumping to the new console, and it was stripped down, it missing all the game modes. It wasn't going to have anything that I liked in it. And I was really bummed out, and I was just trying to find information on it. Found HQM, and after all these years of playing NHL, I wasn't going to get the new one, and it was just pretty much the logical, next step. Like, oh, here's a hockey game. Here's a hockey game that I can play online, and I can't do that with the new NHL. So that's what got me. Just the fact that it was multiplayer and people were playing it.
Right. I do remember the NHL 15, by the way. That was the one that was
Yeah,
completely, yeah. No, I remember that exact. Um, I don't want to get off topic, but yeah, that was pretty bad.
yeah. It sucked. I didn't get first one. I didn't get for like a decade. That was the first one I didn't buy.
So once you get to, I don't know, 50, 100-ish hours, yeah, that's like a decent, because, at the beginning you're playing around with it, and like most people, the story is the same. It's like so goofy and like silly that it's like fun to play at the beginning. And then once you get to like 50, 100 hours, you start to improve, and then you start to, so what made you want to keep playing at that point where you're at that point where you have to actually start like learning and playing it for real?
Yeah, I joined at such a weird time. There was like people had joined a little before me and a little after, but I kind of just trickled in and played by myself a lot or played with my friends privately. And then I started playing in pubs, public matches with, uh, the random people of the community. And then, I don't know, like it was just, again, I just really wasn't playing much at the time. So this was the only thing I was playing. So, uh, yeah, I don't know. I wish I had a good answer for this. It's I wish I had a reason for why I kept playing. It was just sort of the only game I was playing. I liked it, all it came down to. But I guess joining the leagues really was
Mm,
probably when I hit that 50-hour mark, I'm guessing, when I
right.
started improving. So, yeah,
Well,
I came into the league and I had a really fun time, really great team with a lot of really great people that I still talk to, still keep in contact with. So, maybe that's what did it more than the game itself, because who knows if I would have kept playing the way I was playing
well,
without
this
the
is,
community.
yeah, you're almost like sort of you're ahead of some of my questions, and so it's interesting. Like, if it's not something you've thought about, this will be fun because then I really start to sort of I think that from that I've asked people similar things and I can dive into already like what I think are some of the things that push people to play, and then people come back to me with what they think. So, for example, was the draw of the leagues, you talked about it being something that would have kept you in. I've had back and forth. Some people would say they would have just preferred pubs. Was league something that like really kept you drawn to the game, like the organization of it?
Um, I think eventually that would have been safe to, but I played the game for like probably 4-ish months at just pubs, and I was more than content with that. Like I became aware probably like I found the game late 2014, but I didn't really play it. And then 2015 into that new year, I started actually playing pubs and practicing, I would say, rather than it just be like a thing I would show my friends. So I don't know. There was a good 4 months there where I knew about the leagues and wanted nothing to do with them, and then but I don't think I would have been able to keep that up. I think eventually I would have got bored of the game if I hadn't kind of jumped into the league environment. Like I think you can only do that for so long before you're just like, okay, I've had enough.
When you played NHL or other games now or other games at the time, were you playing competitive games or were you playing competitively in NHL like
Yeah,
Ultimate
yeah,
Team
I was
or
playing competitive. I was playing a lot of HUT competitive. I was playing ESHL.
yeah,
I had a team. We were really good. Like again, when I was like, I'm trying to think of the age exactly. I was probably like 16 or 17. I was like I was amazing at those games. Like I'm not great anymore because I don't really play the new ones a lot. But like back then, that was like the only thing I would play, and I was really competitive in that. I didn't do like the league gaming that like I think is what the HQM leagues are based on. I think Taser played that, and he kind of took their idea, turned it into HQM's leagues. But I didn't really do that. But I was just into the matchmaking, yeah, competitive.
right. And then other games, are there any other games you play now that are
No, no.
competitive?
Other games, no, no,
Oh,
never
okay.
with any other game. But NHL was, yeah, that was a big one for me before HQM.
And did you do competition in other aspects of your life like,
I
sports or
played
whatever?
sports, yeah.
Yeah.
I played baseball when I was a kid, and I was playing right when I was playing HQM. I was playing at again maybe not a real sport, but I was playing scheduled floorball games twice a week,
And
and
that's a
me and my friends were training to play on the college hockey team, but then we didn't end up doing that. Just kind of stuck with the floorball for a while.
okay. Interesting. Um Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to I'm trying to center myself because we've covered lots of things quickly. So when it
I'm
came
sorry, I'll slow
to
down.
no, when it came to the no, it's good. When it came to the leagues, and you reflect on your time playing in leagues, do you find you probably like all told enjoyed that more than pubbing, or like when
Oh,
you
yeah, absolutely. Not even close. Pub I kind well, I used to love pubbing. I used to love it when I was new and but it was sort of a different game I think than it is now, especially with ranked. Like I can't really speak to what it would be like being a new guy playing in ranked matchmaking in this game. But yeah, leagues were I love playing in leagues and then I love looking back at leagues. Like I don't look back at pubs fondly, but I look back at the leagues very, very fondly. I have a lot of good memories of that, and just again, sense of community, all that. You make the friends on the game. You don't really get that in the pubs.
yeah,
Not in the same way.
I think this, it's an interesting element in what I'm trying to isolate for a lot of people right now, is this specifically. So I'm like, also I'll say it out loud so I can keep track of what I'm trying to think. So what I'm trying to track is there are a lot of reasons to put and a lot of things to put thousands of hours into. So my question about HQM specifically and in general is what drives a person to spend that amount of hours on this specific thing. So you could have done a lot of things other than this. Was it the uniqueness of the community? Because there are other communities you can find, right?
Mhm.
So was it the uniqueness of the community or just the specific people you knew? Was it that tied with the competition and knowing that you were competing to be better than people or with people or
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that. Like I think everything sort of ties in. So like specifically when I was joining and pubbing, even then there were a lot of players I remember that were like had joined around the time as me or were roughly on my level that I remember every time I'd be on, I would try to be better than them. And it was like very much and you'd see these players, you'd see really, really good players, especially compared to a new guy. It's like you see them and think, that's crazy that they can do these things in this game. Like, I can barely push the puck down the ice from one end to the other, and these guys are like stick handling, making passes, catching passes. Their shots go on net from everywhere. It's like, it was crazy to me. So it's like, there's that competitive aspect of thinking, I can get better than these guys, or I can get as good as these guys, and then the leagues on top of that are an experience like nothing else that I've ever seen again. Again, I played NHL pretty competitively, but I didn't do league gaming, which I imagine would be the only thing close to the HQM experience, playing a hockey game on a team environment with drafts and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's and the game itself is just so interesting. Like you'll never play another game that's anything like hockey question mark. Like nothing. You'll never it just won't happen. It's I think the most unique game in the world.
Yeah, on that, do how many hours, or you don't have to give me a number or anything, but just how excited would you have been, or how long would you play the game if there was no league scene and you could just play, you could just play a couple pubs, or you could like only solo practice, or you could only pub. Like, how many hours do you think you would have put into it without the competitive scene?
Again, when I found it, I was content doing that. And right now, in the situation we find ourselves in with basically, I mean, there's a league coming, but not a big league. It's not like it used to be. You know,
Yeah.
I'm content solo practicing and playing all the time, and I probably will continue to do so as long as there are servers up. It's just again, like I would play by myself. Like I just enjoy the way the game feels. Just like if you're gonna play, like a businessman way back in the day playing solitaire Minesweeper on his office computer. It's like just throw on HQM when you're bored, kind of thing. But I don't think I ever would have gotten to that point if there hadn't been leagues. Like I think
Interesting.
the leagues were very, very important to keep me around for as long as it did and get me to the point where I did enjoy the game so much to play by myself.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm thinking about that. I think um that's an interesting way of putting it. And I think I agree with that. I think I agree completely with that. That I'm probably in the same boat right now, where I would solo practice the game as long as it let me, but
Yeah.
I would never have gotten to that point, obviously, without the existence of the leagues.
No, if there hadn't been leagues, this would have just probably been a thing that I saw and forgot about.
Interesting. Okay, so then we'll build on that then, just a little bit. So when it came to the leagues, I think the first one of the things that I've found amongst different people and myself is that we would solo practice with a purpose. Did you ever find yourself solo practicing like to get better, putting hours in,
Yeah,
just like and with
all
that
the time.
express
Yep.
goal of like I'm going to
Yep.
improve?
Yeah, I don't remember. I've always practiced a little here and there, but there was a certain. I'd been in the leagues for a little while when I kind of hit that point where probably playing with people like Dial and Dalf, where they kind of instilled that in me that like, hey, if you practice specific things, you'll get better. And it was like, oh, like if I shoot from the same spot over and over and over again, eventually I'm just going to be able to do that. I'm going to be able to consistently shoot from there and things like that. It starts with that, and then yeah. So I'd been. I'm trying to put a time on that. Maybe a year into the game, less maybe 8 months
Yeah, I
is
think
when I
it
started
I think
practicing
the
with a
more,
purpose.
the interesting thing about that is the desire to literally come onto a game like this. And I've talked about this before again, and it's like um to come onto a game like this especially and put in hours just to improve. What made you want to be better? Like just to put it bluntly, like what made you want to improve?
Well, yeah, what made me want to improve was the league setting, was the fact that there were multiple leagues, and I was in the RSL, the middle, well, the lowest league when I joined. There were two leagues, and then uh, probably at the time when I started practicing, there were three, and I was in the middle, and so the goal was to get into the top league, just climb the ladder. Yeah, so again, the leagues take credit for that.
Right, so like ladder based thinking. I mean, that's pretty
Yep.
common in competitive games now, is
Yeah.
like
Well, and
ladder.
also not wanting to let in. or let in. I didn't want to let down my teammates. I felt like there was a point where I saw some of the work some guys were putting in. It's like, oh, these guys like, some guys practice this essentially, and you get on a team with one of somebody who practices, and if you're not practicing, I think you kind of feel like you're not doing as much as you can. So there's a little bit of that in it. Maybe guilt, guilted into it.
Yeah, you are not the first person to say that exact thing. I'm pretty much everyone has said that you feel a certain responsibility to the people that you're playing with because you've agreed to play with them and that you see them
Yeah.
working or you
And they
like them.
draft you. They want, they pick you for the team and expect something, whatever it is, that you might be drafted high and expected to be a superstar or like just low and chip in, but something's expected of you when somebody drafts you, gets you onto their team, whatever that is.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. So this is one of the so now I'm going to ask this one now because it's sort of a leading question, and I think it relates to what we're talking about, which is I'm just trying to let me so a lot of people think, like psychologists think, and again I'm not a psychologist, I'm just trying to do like what is essentially quasi journalism, but I did just some quick reading and motivation thinking, and one of the things that motivates people is you derive a sense of self-worth in some way from what you're doing. So not to say that HQM is what your self-worth is, but if you think you're, let's say, intelligent, you want to be good at chess because you think that that is a reflection of how intelligent you are. So when you reflect on it, do you think there's any part of your self-worth that was tied up in HQM? Maybe like your intelligence would be reflected by your skill, or like your devotion, or your responsibility, or
Um, well, I've never thought about this one. I guess the way I play, yes, because I was talking about playing NHL, and if I play any sports game, I think you could probably tell it's me based on the way I play. Like I like to pass, I like to defend, I like to play a good two-way game, whatever game it is, NBA, or if I'm playing basketball too. I like to pass, I like to defend, I like to help teammates, and that's maybe something where I want to be helpful, I guess. But I don't really know. Yeah, I've never really thought about it, but
yeah,
maybe. Maybe that's
yeah.
because that's just the way I play games. Like I don't like to play a selfish game. Whatever it is I'm playing. I like team sports.
Yeah, the reason I
So I
bring
don't
that
know.
up
Maybe.
is because, normally to put this many hours into something, your piece of yourself has normally it's reflected in that. And for the people I've talked to, sometimes it's usually it's in the community, but for some people it's just the community, and for some people it was also the game. So they felt like there was something just specifically about the game that gave them that feeling of like, oh well, if I'm good at this, it means that I'm blank, right? If I'm
Hmm.
good at this, it means I'm smart or whatever. And so for me, like when I think about when I played the game, like for me, it sort of became a sunk cost fallacy type thing where it was like, I've spent so many hours, I might as well be good at
Might as well be
this.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a competitive person to begin with. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Like I'm pretty competitive. Which again, before like this game, honestly, I didn't really know how competitive it was. But like I don't know. As much as I fail at it, I really try not to be. It's just I don't know. It just comes out playing a game like this, I guess.
yeah. Was your goal, what was your goal ultimately? Like, was it to be the best player, or was it to win the
No,
LHL,
I
or?
never like I won cups in the RSL, and they mean as much to me as the cups I won in the LHL, like if not more, honestly. It wasn't like again, as much as the leagues had a big impact, it's like I never really cared about winning so much as or even being the best. I've never had since I joined, never had like an illusion that I could be the best. Like I could be effective and I want to be good, but I never really cared. I really don't know. I really don't have a great answer there.
No, I mean I mean, yeah, that is a good
No,
answer
yeah.
because it's different from other people's answers, which is
No,
what's
yeah,
interesting to me.
I liked being a cog in the HQM machine for a while, as much as maybe I became a little more important on the managing side. But like, yeah, which I never wanted. Like, I never wanted to GM. I never wanted to BOC. I never wanted to be the best. I just liked playing and liked getting on. Wanted to be as good as I could be, but yeah,
Um, one of the other things I've talked to people about and read about is that the if you engage in competition, if people around you are close to you in your skill level, both above and below, it really engages the competitive mindset. Did you find that you found yourself like comparing to the people that were sort of supposed to be neck and neck to you in skill level, or the people that you were looking up to? Like, did you find yourself making a lot of those, like, am I better than this guy? Like, I got drafted
yeah,
behind this guy,
yep, yeah. I had all that. I had especially my first few seasons, those first few drafts. I remember a lot of guys would go over me, and I wouldn't be mad or anything, but I would see these picks and I'd be like, I'm better than that guy. What are you doing picking this guy? I'm better than him, and that would happen like a lot, and I think it happens to a lot of people in it. So yeah, I would get those feelings, and there were players I looked at as kind of like the bar. I've always had various bars where like I haven't had that for a while. I don't look at anybody and think I have to become better than them now. But like, yeah, when I was first playing and first joining the leagues, just in that league environment, there were like a good handful of players that I was always comparing myself to and trying to be better than, or
yeah
at least
I
see how I measure too. But I would always check and see like who had more points or whose team's doing better, things like that with a few players.
yeah I sort of want to I want to yeah I'm torn because I'm thinking about how tangential I want to be, but it depends on how long you want to talk. But
Oh, whatever. I can go forever.
yeah, so then knowing that, then I'll just jump on that instead of skipping around it. When you think about, this is one that you've probably said this in the answers, so don't feel like I know that you probably said this, but I just wanted like to have it more clear. So when you think about playing the leagues and the community in this game, did you feel like it was, and like the solo practice like I was talking about, you did feel like it was more a collaborative responsibility thing rather than a competitive like drive
Yeah.
to be better? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I think it was definitely, yeah, my desire to actually like improve. Like I don't think I ever worked to get better than anybody as much as I compared myself and wanted to be better than a lot of people. uh, I never worked at becoming better than people. I just worked to be as good as I could to help my teammates out and you know try to win games, all that. Just you know I think as you do.
Right, that makes sense. And what's also interesting, it's not something I've thought about until just like in this interview, is that you talked about your play style reflecting your personality sort of like in when it comes to competition. I think that's really interesting because I think that you could probably guess people's motivations to playing the game by how they play. Like
Yeah,
in
what or
some
at least
ways.
what they want to get out of it, I
Yeah, yeah.
think. Yeah. Like I think there's some. Well, you've interviewed Dial. I think Dial can be a bit of a selfish player, but he's absolutely not a selfish person. But there's maybe exceptions, but well, I guess also the way Dial plays is and practices is the drive to be the best, and he is the most competitive person I think I've ever met in my life. So maybe that's spot on. Maybe everybody you can absolutely see what they want to get out of the game by how they play it, how many hours they put in.
Yeah, I think there were lots of people who I would say played a sort of role where, and this is actually, I want to try and differentiate you from, and I'm not going to name names because I know that like
No, yeah, sorry for naming one there. I
no,
didn't
no,
mean
no,
to
no,
be
like
mean.
that's fine. You can do whatever you want, but like, I don't want to name names when I say this because like I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to like shit on somebody. But there are people who played the game who really only liked the community aspect. Actually, you'll see when DMB talks that he actually did talk about this too. He was actually more focused on the community than the game. But there are other people who I would guess or surmise, or they told me as such, that pretty much the only reason they were in the community was because they had friends here and like the game was just a way to like hang out with them, and so they weren't very good. Like comparatively to how long they've been around, let's say, because they weren't practicing as much. So it wasn't just for you that you liked people in the community. It was like you wanted to be useful to people on the team, and you wanted to be playing LHL.
Yeah, well, eventually I wanted to be playing LHL, and I mean, it's funny because at the same when I became an LHL player, I wasn't expecting it. I thought I'd stagnated, and I was honestly content with that. I was content with being a good RSLer. So like, I really don't. It wasn't really till I got into the LHL again where I was really probably trying to practice hard and go to things. Uh, I forgot the question
Well, it
exactly.
wasn't
I
so
just
much a
started thinking about
question.
that.
Listen, DMB did the same thing to me. He said, that wasn't a question, man. You got to rephrase that. And I said, you're right. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Um,
Well, we were talking about community aspect and me. Yeah, just more confirming. Yeah, me playing the game, trying to. I don't know. I feel like I wasn't totally in it. Like, oh, I can't let these guys down. I can't appease them. Like I did. At the end of the day, I did love the game, and I still love the game. I think it's. I was talking about it the other day. I think I was talking about my favorite games, or we were talking about our favorite games with somebody, and I was saying like it'd be insane not to say hockey question mark as much as it's like nothing else. It's
well,
barely a game, and yet it's probably the best game or my favorite game. It's not the best game by any stretch, but it's my favorite game I've ever played.
well, that's exactly the thing, right? Like, that's exactly the crux of what I'm talking about is it's like, actually, this will ask it's right now. So people in the community as well, and people outside of the, like, who know about it, it's pretty much like it's almost like faux pas or bad that you play the game at all.
Yeah,
Like it's almost like it's deprecating to say that you play the game, like it's a waste of time.
yeah.
Do you truly like feel that it's a waste of time what you've been doing in the
Not
game?
more than anything else. Like you want to get like super philosophical, like everything's a waste of time, you know? Like we've got such a limited amount of time. It's like, oh, you should be doing whatever, but it's like, I don't know. Who cares? Do what you like. Do what you enjoy in your spare time, whatever you could do. So I don't know. If you like hockey question mark, you shouldn't be, kind of like, oh God, I could play that. It's like at least with people who play video games, it's like, I don't know, why not hockey question mark? What makes World of Warcraft less of a, you know, embarrassing in quotes, which I don't think anybody playing any game is embarrassing, but or whatever, they should be bummed out or think it's bad. I think Kiwi brought that. We interviewed Kiwi, and he brought that up that was something that sort of frustrates him. Is you're always hearing people, and I hear it all the time. People who are just the game, it sucks, like it's bad. It's like oh man, why am I playing this? Why am I playing this? And then you're playing for 3 hours while you're complaining about it. So it's like I don't know. I don't know what it is about the game that makes people kind of think like that. Probably just how much time you put into it. You start reflecting that maybe it was a waste of time, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think you do see similar phenomena in other large online games. Like once you hit
Yeah.
a certain hour threshold, people really, like League of Legends and WoW and stuff, people just constantly complain, right? So I don't think it's unique, but there is an element of, I think if you were a high level player of something like League or WoW, you wouldn't say that you wasted your time. But the difference is
Yeah.
there is a real world possibility of actually getting rewarded. And real world, I mean like monetarily, essentially, because that's, so because that possibility exists, I think people legitimize it, right? Even if you're never going to make that money. But it's definitely something I've seen where people legitimize other games because they have a pro scene or because they have more
hmm
players. So did you ever feel that way when you were thinking about HQM, like that
Uh,
that it was less legitimate?
no, honestly, no, never. Like I don't feel like. Of course, I'm in a weird spot where esports were something that sort of came up and became popular when I was probably just aging out of being targeted at it. Like if they'd really come around and been popular just a few years earlier, maybe there's something that I would have looked at and wanted to play those kind of games, but I never did. So like esports to me, like I don't watch, I don't care. So it's to me, no, it's no different. Like I mean, that's probably not true for most people, but for me, it's like I don't know. If you're playing Counter Strike, you might as well play HQM. It's all the same. You're just playing a video game, money or not. It's like whatever.
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's not a full time thing for these Counter Strike guys. Like they're all done by the time they're 30. So it's
yeah. I don't
it,
want to get too because you said the word philosophical, so I don't want to get too philosophical, but I am a little bit because you've like sort of allowed me to, um, in that again the reason I talked about it and I asked you about your self-worth and your fulfillment is because there's something about competition that people are drawn to. But this game more than anything I think is the perfect example of sometimes it's just competition for competition's sake. And so it's fascinating to ask people about it because there's no worldly gain even possible. And you know, it's not just that because people are competitive about everything. Like if I go and I play tic tac toe with somebody, they might get competitive with me. But it's like this is
Yeah.
something where you keep drawing people back, and that is significantly different, right? And so that was just me speaking. And so now I will ask a question. Um, did you did you feel like as you played, did you feel like you learned something translatable from your time in the game about yourself or about the world or about people or about anything?
Yeah, two things. One maybe a little more cynical, and one a little more optimistic. The one thing I learned playing this, and we've talked about it, and talked about maybe it's not the best game, but it's my favorite game. What I learned from HQM, and it's probably saved me a lot of money, is that I don't need a lot with a video game. Like a little goes a long way. Like HQM is nothing, it's free, it doesn't look like much, there's no sound, and yet I've played it more than I've played any other game ever. It's like, why would I spend $80 on a new video game that I'm going to play a couple of times when I got something right here, that kind of thing. Which, yeah, I definitely, maybe it's, again, I've played this game so long, it's just getting older while I'm playing it, but I've definitely, like, I'm not a big fan of video games, honestly. It's Hockey Question Mark is really the only one I would call myself a fan of. And so I don't know. It made me dislike a lot of video games, honestly, because of how much I like this and how limited it is, I think. And but another thing I learned that I think was valuable and probably in keeping me around, and I haven't touched so much on the community aspect as a lot, but I definitely approached it kind of going into it thinking like, like internet friends. Like I had some Xbox friends I played with back in the day, played NHL with, but I wouldn't consider them my friends. Like I never did. But Hockey Question Mark, you play so long, I started to kind of learn from these people. It's like, oh, these are real friends. Like Dial is a real friend of mine. Like he is one of my favorite people in the world. And it's, met him playing Hockey Question Mark, and like there's so many people like that where it's just like, if I met him playing Xbox when I was a teenager, I wouldn't have thought like, oh, this is a friend of mine. It would have been, no, that's a guy I know on Xbox. Whereas with Dial, it's like, no, Dial's my friend. It's so yeah. What it kind of taught me was these internet relationships can actually be a lot more valuable than I thought they were. And I never would have learned that without this game. Never would have joined it. I don't think I would have ever joined like an internet community without this game attached to it.
Yeah, I want to jump on that quickly because I think, and I can, like, you could never ever prove it. But I think that there's something specific about HQM. I don't know if it's the competition. That's part of what I think it is, but it also might be the nicheness of it. But I
Yeah,
think
all of it. Yeah.
people make more friends on this game in this community than I've probably ever seen. Like, percentage wise. Like it seems like every person in this community meets and makes a friend through the game that they like consider a real genuine like I would probably
Yeah.
go to their wedding style
Yeah.
friend.
People have. A ton of people have.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like, you hear about that in World of Warcraft, but that makes sense because there's literally like 100 million people playing. So eventually you're going to, just by the laws of
Yeah.
averages. But I think for some, whatever reason, this game is like, there's something very like something very connective about this game. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. But do you have any insight on what that
Yeah.
might
Yes.
be? Or
Well, yeah, I was while you were talking about it, I was putting more thought into it. And it's really similar. Again, I say there's nothing like it. Like this is as close, I think, and I've never played on a sports team at like a professional level, at a high level even. Like I've played on sports teams, but very low level, casual style. Like I think HQM something where you're getting as close to that actual team environment, and especially at a very high level. I think it would change things where you're all really, at the top of your game and trying to improve for the most part, or at the higher level. Um, and I think maybe, and I don't want to generalize because I know like a lot of people in HQM, all walks, played, a lot of them played high level hockey. That's, people being big into hockey is how they got into this. And maybe they could back it up or say I'm totally wrong, but I would assume maybe a lot of people aren't playing on high level sports game or sports teams getting into Hockey Question Mark. And that's an experience that they get in here, and it's a really good bonding experience. I think playing on a team with for so long, like a 3 month long, you're playing with the same guys, all going for the same goal. Like it's, you don't really get that anywhere, and I think a lot of people who probably play HQM don't get that anywhere else except HQM. So it's probably what that all comes down to,
Yeah, I think
if
for
I had to
me,
guess.
yeah, I think I agree. I think I agree completely. And now I have even more. Okay. So, and the other thing I was just going to say to support that, um, yeah, I have another question that I have to keep in the back of my mind. So, but the other thing I was just going to say before I ask that is just to like, I'm an actor and, no, but, I'm an actor. So, uh,
I support your strike. You're Canadian though, so never mind.
yeah.
I support nothing.
Yeah. Like when you're on set and with people, like normally with a cast of people in a play, you spend like 3 months together and you're all going for the same goal and you're collaborative and you're also competitive in some ways too, right? And that to me forms really strong bonds. And that's pretty much another area where I feel I can draw a lot of similarities to playing on an HQM team, which is like, bizarre as it sounds, right? Like, but it is
Yeah, no, it
true.
makes sense though.
Yeah, it is true. I think there's something very bonding about it. And then yeah, this is going longer than I wanted to. But the other question I was going to ask you, just related to that, is there a reason like you think the HQM game specifically grew such a like an ability to be competitive? Is it just like the control, having that total control over your player? Because that would be my
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, it's the total control. Like, there's no RNG in the game. Like, every now and the puck will physics, but honestly, you can kind of predict for the most part when that's going to happen or what happens. Like, it's really not that crazy. Um, but like, yeah, it's total control. There's no random element. Like, the better players are better. Like, you can't luck your way into being good at HQM, and you can't at a very high level with a lot of games, but with HQM specifically, just having absolute control. There's nothing. You're not going to shoot a guy and it's not going to do a little less damage. It's the puck crosses the line, it's a goal. Or you hit the puck, it's going to move exactly as much as you hit it or where you hit it every time. It's consistent. It's I don't know. It's honestly the perfect little physics game that just the more you put into it, the better you get, and it just people seem to keep getting better. We never hit that cap, I don't think. So there's always something to work towards.
Yeah,
Just
I wonder if people will ever hit a cap. I don't even know if it's possible. Like I don't
no,
think.
I don't know.
Imagine if we were on zero ping, playing land tournaments,
Hmm.
then we'd really see it. Um, yeah, so yeah, I think that's all interesting. I want you to try your best to sort of rephrase what we've said in totality and see if you can finish a sentence for me. So the sentence is the reason I put so many hours into HQM and competing is because, and then,
Oh man, what a question.
and it's
Um,
try and, yeah, as quick as you can.
the reason I played, yeah, put all the hours in, played as much as I did. I honestly, I could probably say a combination the leagues and the people along the way, and I'm it always in. But honestly, absolute at the end of the day, it's because I love the game. I think it's the best game in the world.
Right.
That's all it comes down to. If the game was worse, no community could make me play it.
Right. That's a good point. I like that. Um, that's interesting. And are there any things you think you haven't really like said or touched on very much that you think other people would have really like drawn them to the game specifically that didn't really affect you?
If I wish I had a way to draw more people in,
Right.
make them kind of see the game, love it like I do. But no, I don't know. It's just I think a lot of people get a lot of different things out of the game, and they all see it. Uh, I think a lot of people see it similarly, even if we can't quite articulate it. But I don't know. I think it is exactly what it is, and it's you either love it or you don't. Not much you can say to somebody who doesn't. I don't think.
Yeah, it is sort of unique in that way. Um, is there anything that you have on your mind about competition, about motivation, that you haven't said that you think is that you want to be said before I say bye bye?
Uh, no. Honestly, no. It's we kind of touched on. I don't really put a lot of thought into you know, like I am competitive, but I don't really think about it, and I don't think about you know, my own competitiveness, even approaching HQM, even when there's leagues going on. Like, I don't know. I don't have much to say about it. It would just be kind of speculative. More
Right.
of that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate getting to talk about HQM.
Yeah, like I said,
I love it.
I think it's really fascinating. I think that people we sort of take it for granted that I think it's actually almost a very
Yeah,
unique. It's a very unique community. I think I don't think there's
yeah,
actually much like it. So it's interesting in a sort of human interest way.
yeah. I guess the one. Sorry, the one thing that would be, and I already touched on it, but just to kind of rephrase, it is very frustrating. I think when the players who obviously play it so much and clearly love it do kind of put it down. That is the one thing. I think if a lot of people were a little less negative about the game, and it's always been like since I joined, people have been like that. But I feel like that's the one thing is sort of the negative opinion among even the players that kind of gets spouted every time the game's going on,
Well,
which probably just drives from it being so hard and so, competitive.
yeah, I think I've definitely spent many many a night talking about how terrible and what a waste it is, and I
Yeah, I'm sure I've had. Well, I absolutely have. I was on pubs earlier, probably talking about how bad the game was, but
yeah,
it's just the way it is.
I think that you sort of yeah, I agree that there is a sort of a difference between messing around and just make and memeing about it versus
Yeah,
truly thinking that you wasted your time or truly
yeah.
deriding what you did on it.
Like I think if you think you wasted your time on the game, there's probably an issue there that honestly has nothing to do with the game. Like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor either, but I would tend to agree with you. But yeah, um, yeah, I appreciate it again. And I hope we talk more. I hope this is interesting to people. And I hope that
Yeah, don't skip my segment, or if you did, rewind it.
I'll put yours. I'll label yours as dial.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that'll get some listens.
I want to get a bunch of clicks on it. When's dial coming?
Yeah.
Um, all right, yeah. So thank you, and this will be splicing with
Yeah,
the
thanks.
rest.